Amen.
Genesis chapter 19.
Amen.
Read one verse because I have so many to read. Just read one verse to you. Look at verse 14. Verse 14, Genesis chapter 19, verse 14. It says, so Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But his sons-in-law, but to his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking.
All right.
You may be seated.
Amen.
Right. I'd like to use for a topic this morning, man, you are a joke.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
It's all right.
Man, you are a joke.
Come on.
11 years from now.
When you look at the word joke, people, from the English translation, when you first look up the definition, it will show you that it's like, you know, making fun of someone, or, you know, making them laugh from what you're saying and different things of that nature. But I dug a little further in the definition, and I seen that joke also means, from an informal perspective, it says a person or thing that is ridiculously inadequate. In other words, to put it in a sentence, he's soon to become a joke to us. Or you might look at somebody and say, you know what, you are really a joke. That in our translation, that's to say, you know what, you really either getting on my nerves, or you can't nobody take you serious, you play too much, or better yet, you know, have somebody ever said, or you heard them say, your life is a joke. Because you don't take things serious like you're supposed to. You know, you think you can just wear a cross around your neck, pray to him when you ready to pray to him. You know, you want to get right when you want to get right, and think things gonna fall your way. But in your ignorance, God still bless you. But it was just amazing when I got up. I think I looked at, I don't know what I was doing, and the Lord just led me to this passage, you know, about Lot, you know. And God gave me confirmation this morning because I turned on the TV. I watched this pastor that I usually watch, and he was preaching from the same text that I was going to preach from this morning. And then he talked about some of the same exact things that I'm going to talk about this morning. And I told Shannon this morning, I say, boy, isn't it strange how God worked? Because not on, look, people, not just this morning, we preaching the same thing. I can put this on everything I love. He talked about the same thing that I talked about last week. And I told Shannon, I say, well, Shannon, you know, I know it's confirmation because if you heard it and you hear me speak from it, because you might be hearing it secondhand, you might feel like I was listening to him. But I told Shannon, I say, see how God worked? Because I preached this basically, or I gave all my notes to one of my customers Friday, and I also gave the same illustration and notes to my brother-in-law Friday night when he came by the house. So I know it was God. So he can vouch for me that I ain't here till this morning. You know, that it wasn't none but God. But God, and it's just amazing that God wants to speak to us, and He has a big ministry, several thousand or whatever. But look here, people, what can be preached to several thousand can be preached to a few.
Yes, it can.
And God always know who need to be in the room.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
If most people don't even much know about the story of Lot, you know, they don't even much know who Lot is. But I'm gonna bring you up to Paul. Lot is Abraham's nephew. And what happened was God was talking to Abraham.
Right.
And He was telling Abraham that he's tired and he's fed up with this city, and he's going to destroy this whole city.
Right.
And He told him, He said, so Abraham pleaded for the city. He said, Lord, I tell you what, if you can find 10 people in the city, if you can find 50 people in the city, would you spare it?
Yeah.
Lord say, Abraham, I tell you what, you've been walking with me, you're a man of faith, and I love you and you love me, and we friends. I tell you what, you can if you get 50, I'll spare the city. Abraham said, okay, Lord, if 50 but Lord, what if 50 minus 5, would you spare the city then?
Right.
And the Lord said, I tell you what, Abraham, 45 people, I'll spare the city. Right after that, Abraham said, Lord, if it don't anger you or bother you too much, Lord, what about 30?
Yeah.
Lord said, Abraham, I'm telling you, man, I love you, and I know you love me. You'll do anything I ask you, and you know, if you have to sacrifice something, I know you'll sacrifice. Abraham, if it's 30.
Right.
Abraham looked and he thought to himself, and before he went to God again, Lord, if it don't trouble you so much, and if it just don't anger you, Lord, what if it's 20 people in the city? Lord say, Abraham, you're pushing it now, but I love you, and if you find 20 people in the city, I'll spare the whole city. Abraham looked, said, Lord, if I could say anything else, don't be angry with me. But what if it's 10?
Yeah.
Abraham said, the Lord said, Abraham, if it's 10 in the city, I'll spare it. Make a long story short, it jumps to the story about Lot in Genesis chapter 19. If you're familiar with the story, if you never heard it, God gave Abraham first choice of the land. And He told Abraham, wherever you go, I'm going to bless you. Where Abraham and Lot's people was getting into it. So Abraham went and told Lot, he said, hey man, nephew, so we won't fall out, and our servants won't fall out, our children and all of them won't fall out. I tell you what, wherever you go, if you go right, I'll go left. And if you go left, I will go right.
Yes.
And Lot is like a lot of us. Lot likes, the nice things, and Lot feel like if he got the upper hand, he gonna jump on it. And Lot, like a lot of other people, love material things. So when he looked at Sodom and Gomorrah, he said, you giving me first choice? He said, I'll take Sodom and Gomorrah. He said, okay, we're going to go that way. Abraham gave him first choice because he loved him that much.
Right.
Here's Lot now. Lot of businessman. He's also an entrepreneur. Now he's in the city because in verse 19, chapter 1 of Genesis, look what it says. It says, now 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. Notice he was sitting at the gate, people. The reason Lot was sitting at the entry of the gate, this is where all the big shots sat.
Right.
And Lot got him a major position in this city now. So, just imagine with me, he sit at the city, they drinking on cognac, smoking cigars, because he had that kind of position now, along with the administrators and the leaders of the city.
Yeah.
And Lot didn't realize though, but he came there as a visitor, as an alien, and they welcomed him in.
Right.
But Lot made his way to the top, and became successful in the city. So he said at the front of the city gate. It says, when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. And he said to them, hear now, my Lord, please turn in your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early in the morning and go your way. So when Lot saw them, Lot realized that they was men worth respecting. He didn't know that they was angels, but he just saw two men. And Lot asked them to come and spend the night with him. When he asked them to spend the night, notice in that same verse in chapter 2, he said, not chapter 2, verse 2, and he said, no, but we will spend the night in the open square. In other words, we don't spend the night in the inn. This is what the angels told him. Look what verse 3 says. But he insisted strongly. So they turned in to him and entered his house. Right. Then he made a feast, baked bread, unleavened bread, and they ate. In other words, they fellowship. Right. Abraham, notice Lot. They told Lot they was going to go stay in the inn. But Lot not only insisted, he strongly posed his will on them and say, come to my house. Yeah, yeah. They eating and fellowshipping. Look what verse 4 says. Now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter surrounded Lot's house. They surrounded his house, people. Look what they said. And then called Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you at night? He said, bring them out to us that we may know them carnally. If you read from the NIV, it says, so we can have sex with them. Yeah. And this morning, when I was listening to the pastor preach, I was real interested in knowing where he was going to go once he got to that part. And I was shocked. But to his credit, he talked about what Sodom and Gomorrah really represent, but he honed in and he kind of criticized us for looking just at one angle of it to say that it was full of homosexuals. Right. When it says that it was wicked, and he talked about it being so wicked, and he compared it to being like Houston. In Houston, you have a whole bunch of different wickedness. In other words, we do anything under the sun. We sell drugs. Now it's human trafficking. Yeah. You know, you're doing anything. You partying and just carrying on like a fool or like an infidel. Yeah. Infidel means sinner. Right. Like we don't have no authority over us. Yes. All of Houston, but this all over the world. And I kind of thought to myself, I say, well, you kind of taken from what is really going on here in the power of the message. Yeah. You know, and I said, now when you think of it, these men, look, they talking about one issue here. Yeah. They surrounded his house, and they wanted Lot to send the men out, and they said, because we want to have sex with them. Look, people, don't y'all get it twisted. I want y'all to understand something about the Bible and what you need to understand about when you watch movies. Some of your great, what you call them, like screenwriters or producers that write movies and all this, don't get it twisted. They said that they gather a lot of their information from the Bible. When they want to write a movie about anything that you see in the days, day when you watch movies. They go to the Bible and get information. So when you see, because the Bible says there ain't nothing new under the sun. But these film writers get a lot of story and information from the Bible. So when I read this, I thought of the movie Get Out. And then I thought about the movie Vacancy. That's probably a little far back with y'all. In other words, make it real simple. Two couples was driving through a town that night, and they BMW broke down, and they had to pull over into a raggedy hotel, motel, whatever you want to call it. But the man was actually watching a movie that he thought he was watching a movie on TV. And as he started really paying attention to the slaughter that was going on, he kind of inched up to the TV and looked at the TV and noticed that the room on the TV looked just like the room that he's in. Right. And men came in with masks on and slaughtered everybody that ever stayed in the hotel. And he said, baby, we got to get out of here. Yeah. That's a movie. But they get the people, ain't nothing new under the sun. Just like Get Out. I've seen the movie Get Out. Man, me, Shannon, and Courtney and Kristen got in the truck and we was all just dumbfounded. We didn't nobody want to say nothing to nobody. And I just bust out and I say, who writes a movie like that? Who does that? What kind of stuff is this? People, I've come to tell you, this stuff really happens. It really happens. That's why I ain't really keen about traveling everywhere. But if God, every state you can't pack a gun, and I don't want to get caught without one with some of this stuff going on, right? But anyway, getting back to the point that I'm making, when you look at the story with Lot here, the men came to Lot's house, people. They surrounded the house, and they told Lot to give us those men. Let's back up. When Lot was sitting at the gate, Lot noticed these two men. Lot rushed up to them and asked them, where are you staying? Hopefully they were just passing through real quick. Let me tell you something about Sodom and Gomorrah, people. Sodom and Gomorrah was known for a place that when travelers come through, men, they will rape them and turn them to slaves. They would actually be their slave, and they would do all sorts of things to them. God had to destroy this city because it was just wicked, it was nasty. Yes. And a lot of us, see, we so into the world, people, stuff just passed our head or go over our head, and we don't really know what's going on. You know why God really have to put an end to that kind of stuff, people? Because lives are in danger when you operate with that type of sin. Right. Because God never intended it to be that way. Right. They said, let us have sex with them carnally, which the word no represents sex, but it's according to a male and female. But when they said carnally, they mean, in other words, we want to have them for ourselves, which represent homosexuality. It's so dangerous, people. If you know something, man, let me tell y'all something. It's some stuff out there that you don't know. And I know y'all probably saying, Pastor, can you get a little move on through the message? No, I'm trying to help you see something.
Yeah. That's it.
Because I was watching this preacher, and he was breaking it down to why that's so filthy and nasty. Because he was saying, what y'all don't know, it's private, it's hotels, and these men, these homosexuals go to these hotels, and they will have sex to the point they rip their sacks, and all this stuff gets on the sheets, the walls, and they can't stop it from coming out, because this is a sin that God do not allow. And they walking around and they can't stop it because now it's running out. And the housekeeping got to come clean this mess up. So what they would do, they would call the housekeeping in the front office, because they used to have this kind of activity in these hotels, that they call private doctors and ambulance that comes around the back so they won't be embarrassed with all this stuff going on. And this is the history of Sodom and Gomorrah. They wanted to rake them in. So Lot saw them. He knew what would happen. That's why he brought them to his house, and it says he forced them to come.
Right.
You notice the scripture said, and early in the morning, he was hoping they make it to morning so they can leave real early.
Yeah.
And that the other men that sit at the gate with him wouldn't find out.
Right.
But they did. Somebody snitched. And they came to the house. And they surrounded the house. And you know what Lot did? Lot went out in the midst of the men and told them, hey, I got 2 daughters in here. You can have my daughters and do what you want with them. What kind of man? You see what I'm saying? I don't know what he was thinking about. He was willing to turn his 2 daughters over to this riot, this gang of men coming to rape men.
Yeah.
Thinking that, he will stall them. I don't know what he was thinking, that hopefully it would take their mind out the men. And while he's out there going back and forth with them, you know what they told him? Say, man, you just a stranger here. Huh. Wait a minute. When you chasing after power and a name and a brand and all this kind of stuff, it don't matter how high you get up on the ladder. It's always somebody that's in sin and corrupt in sin will make you realize, hey, you remember how you got here.
Right.
Don't think you'll judge over us. Don't think you better than us. In other words, I put you up there, I can bring you down. Look at Hollywood. That's how Hollywood do it. There's a price to be paid in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a price to be paid when you hit a certain mark. Watch them every time you look up there in a movie, doing things that they they wanted to do it. I ain't going to say that they usually wouldn't do it. They doing it. All of a sudden you straight.
Yeah.
Now you got these little homosexual genders in your movie and all this kind of stuff. You're okay with it because now you're making money. This is the picture of Lot.
Yeah.
Lot had an uncle that he knew that if he asked God for something, God would give it to him.
Right.
He knew that God told Abraham, I'm gonna make your seed as large as the grains on the seashore.
Right. Right.
He walked out of the protection of his uncle to be on his own. And he had it all. And right then and now, they told him. They say, hey man, in other words, you just a stranger here. Can I read it for you? Look what he says. Verse 6, it said, so Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, please, my brother, do not do this wickedly. He tell them, they wicked. He know they wicked. My question is, you know me, I'm just a person who asks questions. I'm just shocked how he can be under so many homosexuals and remain a man. That's just inquiring minds want to know. Y'all do too, you just won't say nothing.
Yeah.
And he sat there with all that wickedness.
Yeah.
But he was cool as long as he had his money, his cigars, and his cognac.
Yeah.
And he got to sit in the front with his boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they brought him back to reality.
Right.
He said, don't do this. And then he offered his 2 daughters in verse 8.
Yes.
What kind of man offer it?
Virgins.
Then look, verse 9. It says, and they said, stand back. Then they said, this one came to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. He says, so they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. Look, now they got rowdy with him.
Yeah.
Y'all see how sin does? It's so agitated.
Right.
Sin so agitated, they got to the point that, man, look, man, it's on us so bad. Lot sit up there, they about to kick the door down on Lot.
Yeah.
Verse 10, but the men reached out there, reached out there with their hands, pulled Lot in the house with them, and shut the door. Verse 11, and they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, so they can get out.
Yeah.
They struck them with blindness so they can get out, people.
Right.
Look, it's more to this story. Let me kind of rush through it. He struck them with blindness so they can get out. They really done a lot of favor because they wanted these men.
Right.
I'm talking about sin is at the door. I'm talking about viciously at the door, ravishing, just can't almost like when, I'm back to on the movie, just like when you get bit by a vampire.
Yeah.
And they say, man, in a few more minutes they're going to turn, so you're going to have to make a decision to kill them. You see how they just be shaking and convulsing, trying to fight it, and it's getting in their bloodstream? This is what's taking place, people. They wanted these men and wanted them bad.
Yes.
Look, he told them, verse 12, then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else, son-in-laws, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it.
My Lord.
He said, but look what he says to Lot. He said, Lot, do you got any other children? We met your daughters, but do you got any other children or anybody else? Y'all ain't caught it. Abraham said what to God in his last request? If it's 10. The angels asked Lot, is it anybody else? Because we only see 3.
Right.
But is it anybody else?
Yeah.
You see that? If you can bring another 8 people.
Yeah.
Lot went to his sons-in-laws. And this is where the story picks up. He says, verse 13, for we will destroy this place because the outcry against them had grown before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Verse 14, so Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who had married his daughters, and said, actually they was engaged.
Yeah.
And said, get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy it. But to his son-in-laws, he seemed to be joking. That's where I pick up and say, man, you are a joke.
My.
You are a joke. Let me ask y'all this question. Is your life such a joke
My Lord.
that you can't get nobody saved? Or better yet, I'm going to make it a little bit easier. Your life is so much of a joke, people won't even listen to you when you talk about the Bible.
Right.
Technically, the sons had a reason to say that.
Right.
Because Lot got so into his role,
Right.
now coming from under his uncle who loved the Lord,
Right.
who God would often talk to. He didn't want to be under that. He'd rather go to Sodom and Gomorrah and have his own entrepreneur license and be able to live his life the way he wants to and have the finer things in life, and it causes him to turn his back on God. He look, people, don't think that these was the first ones he's seen this happen to.
Yes.
Because he sat at the gate all the time. He's seen the sin. He's seen the wickedness. They brought it to his attention. Then when they said, who made you judge?
Yeah. Yeah.
You see this man, this newcomer, now he's going to try to judge us. Everybody, you're going to be challenged on a certain level, whether it's on your job, in the church, and all this kind of stuff here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine little boys coming to you and you're in a leadership role telling you that their pastor is touching them? And you so in love with your position, you so in love with the amenities of your church,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how big the choirs and all this kind of, you so in love with all this, you ignore the cries of children.
My Lord.
You don't think God gonna judge something like that? You got to be out your mind. My pastor used to say a pus bump is big, but it's infected too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lot was so caught up, he lost his witness. Now these are men that was engaged to his daughters.
Right.
You would think that they told him once upon a time about their uncle. You see what I'm saying? Told him about the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, don't listen to nothing he say. He a joke. He told you what about the Bible? Man, she a joke. Don't listen to nothing they say.
Okay.
This is where Lot's life is now, people. And I hope none of us are walking in Lot's shoes.
My Lord.
To where the life you live before men ain't worth nothing.
My Lord.
In front of them, oh, you laugh, you kick here, and they joke with you and all this kind of stuff here. But behind closed doors,
My Lord.
she ain't about nothing. Lot goes, they looked at, look here, people. This the only, when I got to this part, I just stayed there the rest of the week. I just couldn't fathom that he said he was joking.
My Lord.
And then they said, Lot, is it anybody else? When Lot was out talking to the